Hi, welcome to Convince Me Audio. Courtesy of Yao Yao Tiger and my friend Golden from Golden Sounds, we have the pleasure of reviewing the SMSL SH8S and SU8S amp and DAC separate stack system as part of a system builder series that I'm going to do on Convince Me Audio, starting with the low end of the spectrum. Subscribe, press the like button, and let's talk. These two little units, let's take them separately, one at a time, starting with the amplifier. This tiny little device is literally like a miniature version of the Top-In A90 behind me, yet the price point on this little thing is only $229, which is wonderful. And the amount of power and clean power you get is quite incredible. 3 watts into 32 ohms and 6 watts into 16 ohms. So, not only that, it's a fully balanced amplifier with RCA out and 3-pin XLR out, obviously, and at the front we get 4-pin XLR balanced out and 6.3 jack single-ended. And on the front, power button, input selector, high-low gain. No medium gain on this. So there's a lot of caveats to this amplifier that you have to be careful about, but it doesn't break the system. And also, it's an integrated power supply at the back, which is wonderful. It basically means no desk clutter. Due to the desk size and who this is for, I think this is a very wise choice from SMSL. Absolutely love this tiny little unit. Nice volume pot at the front, it's quite stiff. Channel balance on this specific unit is pretty good actually. I was really impressed. Better than the A90, if you can believe it. So, that's that little baby. We set this one aside. And then here, its counterpart, we have the SU8S DAC. Now, this is the step-down variant of the SU9, I believe. They have so many amplifiers, and DACs in the SMSL range is quite difficult to honestly keep up. Fully balanced, obviously. At the back, we get XLR balanced out, RCA single-ended out, obviously, coax, optical, and USB. And obviously the power supply is integrated in this little unit too. So you just get mains and a very clean little tiny setup. This little DAC outputs DSD512, USB 32768, optical and coax output obviously. You get a very ergonomic system design by holding the pre-volume to get into the main menu. And here you can select your inputs, your filters, and once you've done that, you're good to go. Because you've got the remote control, which has basically the same functions as the main software on the DAC itself, so you can actually control it without having to touch the unit again once you set it up for the first time. This volume port at the front can be used as a digital volume, obviously. At the moment it's set to a fixed line out. It works really well. It's tiny, and this system is a really sweet system for $500. You get quite a lot for your money. At this price point, I think I have found who this is exactly for. So let's move on to the use cases of this little system. Now, this is the lower tier of the audiophile spectrum, I would say. This is the lo-fi territory, but yet it performs in the mid-fi territory. This amplifier obviously itself outputs 3 watts into 32 ohms. This basically means you can drive anything. How well you drive things, that's a different matter. Obviously, it's a conversation for another time. But you can throw such things as this at it. The Diana V2 from Abyss. $3,000 obviously. And it drives it fine. Does it drive it to its full potential? Of course not. But does it drive it fine until it can tide you over until your next purchase of a system update? Yes, 100%. Or something like this one, the Audeze iSign 20. Review actually for these coming soon. These are not too bad. They're not hard to drive. They're not easy to drive either. They're planar. So there is some benefit to the power this provides. But on this amplifier, you never ever feel the need to go to high gain, because when you go to high gain, it just gives you everything. And there are some scary moments that have happened with this amplifier that I will actually get onto a little bit later. But for now, you can be satisfied in knowing that you can drive pretty much anything with this tiny little amplifier. Can you drive IEMs with it though? That's the scary part. Now, technically, you can. Then there is very little hiss to none. The noise floor is incredible, obviously, but if you're throwing a pair of IEMs on this around 8 ohms, 16 ohms, you're looking at 6 watts of power. On the low gain, now this is not much of a problem. Most of the time you will be fine, but you have to be so wary of the volume port. You can't go like this. You can't turn and twist. You literally have to be constantly aware that it's slowly rising, stop there. Because the amount of power this outputs without much of a swing is very apparent. If you go to high gain by accident and you've got IEMs in your ears, even at the tiniest of volume adjustability, like here, you'll probably blow your eardrums out of the back of your head. Please be careful when putting IEMs on this little stack. Something like the P1, those things take incredible amounts of power. You will be fine with this. I think that's one of the amplifiers where I would go, blimey, you can twist this and it just takes it, which is fantastic. So basically this amplifier will suit your needs when you're in the HD6XX territory, in the KSC75 territory, in the CAL territory, and in the Sennheiser 598s and 580s and all the rest of it, the Jubilee and everything else like that. It's when you're playing in the mid-fi territory that this amplifier will perform extremely well for you. When you put resolving drivers such as these on there, obviously it's going to show its problems. But for most headphones in the low-fi to the mid-fi territory, it's wonderful. As for the DAC, this DAC actually gives you overhead, which basically means when you later on down the line, 3 or 4 months down the line, upgrade to a top-in A90 or a Syncsa or something similar, you know that this DAC does not need to be replaced. I'm actually curious, put in the comment section if anybody's got this little tiny stack and how is it working out for you, because it doesn't take up much room on a desk. Sounds clean. We haven't got onto the sound section yet, but it sounds clean and it sounds nice and it's neutral, and it works really well and it's really well priced. I really love the design. I think I might actually keep this here as the lo-fi benchmark on the desk just to test equipment with, but we will see. This has obviously got to go back to Golden to review, and then if I decide to keep it, I'll probably buy it off of him, and if not, I'll just grab another one from Yo-Yo Tigers. I only just twigged about the name. Their information will be down below. Obviously there is no kickback to the channel apart from them sending this in for review or anything like that, so feel free to go elsewhere if you need to buy it or whatever. Going back to the DAC, the noise floor on this thing is 0.0003 and signal to noise ratio is at 116 dB. Pretty nice clean DAC. Like I stated, it actually outperforms the amplifier by quite a bit. So what I did during the review was put the SU8S on the top in A90 back here, and I put the hollow audio spring on the SMSL SH8S back here, just so that we can see what kind of scope and what kind of headroom we get. In regards to the amplifier, it hit a brick wall very quickly. The DAC did not. The DAC actually performed like a champ. So that basically brings us to the sound section. Let's take the amplifier first. This amplifier is clean, clear, neutral, transparent, but leaning on the bright side of things. So if you've got a bright pair of headphones, you might want to be a little careful, because it does, though sound pretty smooth, it can bring treble region forward a little bit. The bass region is quite well defined, it's quite quick. There is a problem with the treble region, like I stated. So let's take each element of the sound of the amplifier one at a time, starting with the bass region. The bass region is quite quick, quite punchy, quite deep. It's not too bad. The sub bass section does tend to roll off a little bit. It doesn't hit the low notes. It doesn't have the skill and capability to really hit the low notes, but it does a good job in the mid bass and in the sub bass section. It's not too bad. Bass is quick, it's nicely textured, and for this price point, I think you're getting a very, very good amplifier. The mid-range is very, very neutral. Instruments are well defined, really clear, really spaced out, really nicely presented in a mix. When you're playing with mid-fi and lo-fi headphones, it's quite nice. It works really well. I mean, on something like the KSC75 and the Bear Dynamics DT250, etc., it did a good job. I mean, it for that kind of region of drivers, it does a good job. So if you are a gamer who just started on Twitch or something and you want a little system that doesn't take up too much space, that looks really good, this little stack will do you very, very, very well. And it will give you a nice headroom to actually grow along with you as you're going up in your headphone chain from the $100, $200 to the $500, $600 region. And if you do buy a flagship in the low flagship territory like an Aria or an LCDX, it will power it fine and it will do a good job, but for refinement, you'll obviously be updating later on. How is the treble region? Now we've covered the bass, we've covered the mid-range, which is adequate, it's good. The treble region is clear, transparent and nicely detailed, but it is, like I stated, forward. So certain headphones that are bright will actually emphasize this area and it can come across rather, I wouldn't like to say glaring, but a bit splashy. I think that's a good word. It does come across rather splashy, but it's not too bad. Imaging is pretty good on the amplifier itself, actually. It spaces instruments out really well, left to right, front and back. It doesn't layer too well. Obviously you're paying $229, I mean, what do you expect? But it layers well enough. It gives you a nice flat picture. It's not too bad. It does choke the DAC a little bit because the DAC can outperform the amplifier by quite a bit, but images are nice. The thing is though, every time I had this on the desk, I was never really too concerned about amplifiers and DACs when I was just working, which is basically it blending into the background. That basically means it's doing a very good job. Staging is where the problem is. It's easily definable when the stage can't shrink and expand because it's got borders and its borders is fixed. So what you do actually get is the track shrinking and expanding within this stage, but you can always see the border of the stage and it's always just wide. I mean, it's good. It basically is not closed in, it's airy, it's open, it's nice, it's just very, very fixed. Going over to the SU8S DAC. Now I'm going to take this DAC first of all on the Top-In A90. That stack with the Top-In A90 D90 in the mid-fi territory will be coming soon for review. So this will be the lower, that will be the mid-tier. But I'm also planning to put the Synxer and the SGD1 review up here as a stack in the mid-fi territory too as well for the right kind of audience, because I think that's an incredible, incredible mid-fi stack that is actually really nicely performing. And for the higher tiers, we're looking at benchmarks and hollows and barcoons and things like that, and those will be coming later on in the year. Going back to this DAC, on the Top-In A90, it actually has got an incredibly nice tonality. I was really impressed. In fact, I like the tonality more on this tiny little DAC than I do on the Top-In D90 MQA back here, priced at $900 freaking. So yeah, well done SMSL. This is great. Instruments have a nice texture, it's got nice imaging, also it can shrink and expand with the amplifier, which is fantastic depending on the track, and not only that, it will actually layer very well. If it's a very, very busy track, it can get a little congested. Obviously, I mean, this thing priced at £249, I believe. In the US, I think it's $249. So this two together is a $500 stack. So you are paying middle of the road money. I mean, it's not really cheap because some of the Zendac stuff from IFI will actually be reviewed later on are cheaper, but I think this outperforms them. This is a nice DAC. I was really impressed with it. And with the added benefit of a remote, putting this under a TV, very, very sweet. I threw all kinds of genres at the DAC. I don't really listen to genre-specific music. My library is so varied, from music across the world and different genres, and it seemed to keep up really well. I mean, when you bear in mind how much it costs, what it is, and you stop listening to the hollow audio DACs for a few days, I had absolutely no problem with this. So sound-wise, I would give this little stack together 3 strong tigers. I think they deserve it. I think it's a beautiful little system. And ergonomically it works. Look at this tiny thing. It's little, and the amount of power this thing throws out, it's insane. And the DAC will grow with you. Let's move on to the problems. I'm going to move on to the problems of the amplifier because I have far more problems with that than I do with the DAC. I think the DAC performs well. The amplifier has got this power issue where it has absolutely no control. Even on low gain, it's just everything's, have everything, have it all, and that's all the time. You can literally blow your eardrums out on a Diana with a sensitivity of 90 dB, let alone headphones that are in 100, 110, 112 dB sensitivity category. When you put this thing on high gain, it scares the crap out of me. I mean, let alone throwing IEMs on there. This thing, you would go like this. You would just go, okay, let's bring it facing me like this. So let me plug in my IEMs. I happen to have forgotten that it's on high gain because I might have connected the Dianas earlier on. And literally within the tiniest of the span of the volume port, you literally will blow your eardrums out of the back of your head. The power is just so apparent and so at hand and so immediate. It's really scary. Quite honestly, I've even been running Dianas on low gain. The high gain on this thing is not well controlled sonically either. It does quite a lot of bad things to the frequency response. It becomes overly trebly. The bass region comes up a little bit and it's not a smooth delivery. There's not much control there really, unless you're choosing something like a Sasvara or something and you happen to have this. I don't know why you would ever put a Sasvara on a little stack like this. Maybe you decided to buy a Sasvara, put all your money on that thing and decide to upgrade your desktop chain later and use this as your main for those few months waiting for money. You'll put it on high gain, but for the majority of headphones that you will be using in the $100 to $500 region, you don't really want to go anywhere near the high power mode on this thing, on the high gain. You have to be very mindful. You can't be forgetful. You can't put it on high gain, stick IEMs on and hope for the best because it really will harm your ears. My second problem is, I would have liked the pre on this thing. It would have been really nice. I mean, if somebody's buying this who's a gamer, who don't really care about spending thousands of dollars, they went on the forums and they spent an hour there. They had $500 to spend, and then by the time the conversation had ended, they had been thrown into the deep end of $4,000 or $5,000, and they just said, nah, I'm not doing that. This is for those kinds of people. It will do you a good service. So for those people, maybe they've got studio monitors on their desk and they might have liked the pre, as well as the obviously headphone amplifier, just an all-in-one system like the A90 back here. But I think that's asking for a little bit too much because it's really clean. It sounds really good, and you're not paying too much money for this thing. It's really well designed. And also SMSL have integrated their own tech into this so that changing input to input and high gain to low gain without getting any pox, which is wonderful. So that even on IEMs, you don't get that click when you're changing over. The relays are really high quality in this thing. It's really well designed. It's a nice little amp. I'm really impressed with it. So setting aside the power problem you have to be mindful for, very good. Very, very good. The problems with the DAC. I really don't have many at this price point. It's got a digital volume control, it's got a remote, it's got coax, it's got optical, it's got USB, balanced out, and the power supply is integrated and it sounds nice and it will upgrade with your system. No complaints there really, to be honest, and I love the design. It's so tiny. I'm just enamored by the design of these two little baby things when you compare it to a ladder DAC like back here, which takes up half of my desk. If you just want to build a little system like this, take a pair of short XLRs, connect this, and if you've got something like an iSign 20 or a KSC75 or HD6XX or something, and you just want a little system that doesn't take up much room on your desk, this should be considered and somewhere near the top of your list in the $500 region for both, which is wonderful. So for the lo-fi stack system build, the SMSL SH8S and SU8S is an absolute winner. 3 solid tigers, $500 together, absolutely brilliant. In the next episode of the System Builder series, we will look at the mid-fi territory where we're exceeding $900, just below the threshold of $1,000. Look out for that review. I would like to take a moment to thank my Patreon members for keeping the audio lounge chat alive. Thank you so much, it's very, very much appreciated. And thanks to all of you for joining the public Telegram chat. The conversation's very lively over there too, so I'll put the information in regards to the public chat down below as well. Consider joining and come in chatting to us in regards to this and any other equipment that's on the way to be reviewed or on the way to the channel. Thanks again. Thank you for coming along this journey with me. I am Koji CEO. I will see you in the next one. Peace.